there, folks. My name is Janaki, and right here we have the lovely Madame Bathsheba, and together we are Catomancy Tarot. So today, I thought I would dip back into the tarot tag archives and revive one. And today we're doing a VR to Steph, and this is the tag one deck for each sign. It's the start, this week it was the start of Aries season, which marks the beginning of the Zodiacal New Year, and so I thought this would be a great time of year to kind of revive this tag and go through each of the zodiac signs. I wasn't quite able to keep it to one deck per sign, so I've got you know, at least a pair of decks for each sign. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and flip this camera around, and we're going to go through each of the zodiac signs. And I think this is, yeah, a fun way to kick off the start of spring and Aries season and the Zodiacal New Year. So here we go. All right, folks, so we're kicking off with Aries. So here I'm going to be showing you guys the zodiac cards from the Spolia. So with Aries, we have our Ram here, and then we also have the Emperor, which is the tarot card that corresponds to the zodiac sign of Aries. And so with Aries, we have cardinal fire. Aries is ruled by Mars, so we have big movers, big shakers, a lot of like, yeah, cardinal fire energy. And so for this, the first deck I'm going to show you is a classic, and it gives me Aries vibes. I don't know if you feel similarly, but this is the Thoth deck. And to me, I feel like it has cardinal energy. I think it's a fiery deck. So to me, this deck is a is an Aries. I know some people have different thoughts about it, but that's how I feel. I don't know Aleister Crowley's astro chart. Maybe some of you do, but to me, this feels like a Aries deck. It's got that kind of big cardinal fire energy. But in addition to that, I wanted to show you two other decks, because I feel like the Thoth is just it's, you know, it's a given. And so one of the decks I wanted to show you, this is a vintage deck, but this is the Balby Tarot. And I feel like this is an Aries deck because it has these like really bright poppy colors, these like sharp outlines, and it's a pip deck. And I feel like pips are really direct. You know, Aries is a fast-moving sign, so sometimes if you want like a really punchy reading, reach for a pip deck, because you get kind of these really, you know, quick and fast. Don't have, you know, we're moving on. we got stuff to do, places to be. So that's what that was my line of thought for this one. And the colors are just also so vivid and bright, and it feels like a really great springtime deck to me. So that's the Tarot Balby for Aries. And the last one I wanted to show you is an oracle deck, and that is the Living Altar Oracle. This is a deck that I always seem to reach for whenever springtime rolls around. And I think it's because of the colors. And this is a deck that was used with lino cut, and I feel like lino cut is kind of a little bit of a it can be a little bit of a like sketchy, messy medium, and so it has this kind of like frenetic energy. And then the other thing about this deck is it operates off of the Wheel of the Year, So maybe that's another reason I associate it with springtime, is it just feels like, you know, it's very in tune with like cycles and seasonality. And then this deck, the subtitle of this deck is an Oracle and Spell deck for the Radical Witch. And another component of Aries, I feel like, is this kind of like impulse for kind of social justice, something I associate with it. And so this deck was kind of made kind of explicitly for those purposes. And that's another reason that I feel like this is a, you know, get out there and fight for something kind of deck. So that is the Living Altar Oracle. All right, so for our next sign, we have Taurus and the Hierophant. My moon is in Taurus, along with my Mars, and Taurus is ruled by Venus. It's one of the fixed signs, so it's this kind of like really stubborn, really earthy, and also, you know, very sensual, very embodied archetype. I'll probably be telling you guys my own personal zodiac as we go along too. But so that's Taurus. Taurus is a sign that I always really relate to. I think it's because I do have that moon and Mars, but it's so I've got a little bit of that stubborn streak, also that kind of luxurious moon, I guess. So the two decks I picked are actually two what I would call kind of very luscious, very beautiful decks. And so the decks I picked for this one are the Mysteries of the Black Madonna and the Ritual Tarot. So this is the new second edition of the Ritual Tarot by Tara May, and here we are with the Emperor. And this is a deck, it's a collage deck, and it feels really earthy to me. I think it's because a lot of the images are of either kind of like naturescapes or kind of like ancient pieces of art. And so it has that kind of really stable, grounded, and also, you know, Taurus is a very, here we've got a little bull there, but Taurus is a very Venusian sign, and this deck, I feel like it's so beautiful. It's, I think it's one of my most beautiful decks. This is one of my favorite cards in the deck. Very sensual, I think. I know a lot of people kind of picked plant-related decks for Taurus, which makes a lot of sense to me, but this one with its sort of like naturescapes and sort of ancient objects feels very feels like a lot of the Taurus energy to me. So that was the Ritual Tarot. And then the other deck I picked is another, both of these decks have, I don't know, a lot of gold in them. These are the backs. This is the Mysteries of the Black Madonna by Hetjen Grobler. And so there's something about the physicality of the way this deck was made. Each of these decks have their own little altar space. And, you know, the tarot card that goes along with the Taurus archetype is the Hierophant. So to have like a physical, you know, these physical, beautiful altars that were made for every card, that feels very Taurus to me. There's also, you know, I feel like there's this like old ancient rootedness that this deck also has. The guidebook frequently talks about kind of different pagan archetypes and crossovers with, you know, Christianity. And to me, this is, it's also, it's Venusian, so there's also that kind of like goddess element to it as well. So that, for those reasons, this to me is a deck that I chose for Taurus. So moving along, our next sign is for Gemini. And now Gemini is ruled by Mercury. It's a mutable air sign. And its tarot archetype is the Lovers. So, known as the twins, you have this kind of element of duality. And so for Gemini season, it's also, Mercury, so it's all about kind of communication. But to me, so it feels like I needed decks that were kind of like very clear communicators, but my own sort of personal associations with Geminis is I feel like Geminis are always on trend. Geminis have an ear to the ground in terms of like what's going on. And so the two decks I've picked are, I think they're both very clear communicators, and they're also kind of like, I think they're like visually kind of very trendy. And that's Marcella Kroll's Sacred Symbols Oracle deck, and whoopsies, Small Spells Tarot by Rachel Howe. And so this deck here is, I feel like this deck is like super iconic. It works really well because of how simple the symbols are. And the guidebook is also like very clear and concise and has really direct messages. The colors are also kind of like very, very vibrant. And it's, it's a great oracle deck because it has kind of every oracle meaning. It just has a great range, and it's, I think it's a really iconic and a great communicator. And then Small Spells Tarot. This is one of several of this type of deck. I call them doodle decks. So this is a bit of a pip deck. But I also think that this kind of works well as a pair. But this kind of deck is, if you read playing cards, I feel like this is kind of a step above playing card reading, and so it has this kind of like very clear, very concise element to it. And then we've got the for all of the court cards, we have like the sort of duality of the faces, kind of like playing cards, which I think also works for Gemini. So those were my picks for Gemini. I love these birds. Yeah. And then there was one other deck I wanted to mention for Gemini. And because Gemini is ruled by Mercury, Mercury is also, there's Hermes and Thoth. So I think another deck that I thought of for this was my Egyptian tarot deck. And I think this is also a very, this is a Mercury deck for me. So it feels, it's another pip deck. So this is another one that I think would work well for Gemini. And this deck is called, I think it's just it's a Spanish publication of the Egyptian tarot. So I think it's just called the Egyptian tarot in Spanish. But that is that one. And now we are moving on to a very special zodiac sign for me, and that is Cancer. So Cancer is cardinal water, and it's ruled by the moon. And I have a stellium in Cancer, and a stellium just means I have 3 or more planets in Cancer. So my Sun, my Venus, and my Mercury, along with my South Node, are all in Cancer. So I'm I'm super Cancer-y Cancer. And fun fact about Cancer, the earlier, before the crab became the sign of Cancer, it was the scarab beetle. And so here we have both included, which I think is lovely. And we're currently in a Chariot year. And the Chariot is the tarot card that's associated with Cancer. And so, Cancer is kind of stereotyped as being kind of like very maternal. It's also very, very emotional. So we've got the moon and the sea here, all very Cancer-y. And so I will say, I feel like I watched a bunch of other people's videos for this tag, and I feel like, I don't know, I feel like a lot of people, I don't know, I didn't really resonate with a lot of people's picks for this one, but maybe that's because I'm just, I don't know, I think sometimes Cancers might get a little bit of a bad rap, but I don't know, discuss below. The two decks I picked for this are both water photography decks, and so I picked the Abyssal Tarot, and then I also picked Tarot of the Drowning World. And both of these decks are photography decks. I'll go ahead and show you the Abyssal Tarot first. Heads up, there's a lot of nudity in this, so here we go. This deck, as I mentioned, all the photographs were taken underwater. And this is a deck that I feel like is very sensuous and very, very emotional for me. And, Cancer is cardinal water, so it's these kind of like big, strong feelings, right? And for me, when I'm feeling really emotional, or want to do a reading to try and get in touch with some hard to pin down feelings, this is a deck that I will reach for, and I think it's super Cancerian. I think it's there's like a really intense like vulnerability in this deck with some of the images. And there's also sometimes there's this like great softness, but there's also some images that are very hard. There's a lot of swords. There's some kind of like BDSM kind of stuff. So there's also this kind of like hardness as well, right? So I think those are both the interplay between like toughness and softness. I think that's an aspect of Cancer. So that's my pick. And then for the other one, it's also a photography deck, and all of the images were taken in a garden. And so the artists actually built this kind of like trough in their backyard in which they floated all of these flowers and people and animals and objects. Here's some of the majors. And then if we skip ahead, we can kind of see some of the pip cards. And so Cancer also kicks us off on the, kicks off on summer solstice. So it starts off the season of summer as a cardinal sign. And so this deck was like made during the height of summer in a garden. And summer garden vibes are super, super Cancer-y, right? And so for that reason, I think this is a like beautiful garden, being creative in the summertime kind of deck. So those are my picks for Cancer. Next up, we're moving right along. The next sign that comes is, of course, our sunshiny Leo. So Leo, represented by the lion, It's ruled by the sun. It's the only planet that was ruled by or only zodiac sign ruled by sun, and it is a fixed fire. And it's also represented by the Strength card, Our Lady with her lion here. And so for me, Leo is kind of the it's the, it's the extrovert, it's the glamorous extrovert of the zodiac. So I think it's kind of with the sun, it's this like, it's a different kind of relationship with beauty than Venusian signs, but it's a little bit more exhibitionist, you know. And so for that reason, I've picked 3 decks for this one, and the first one I'm going to show you, this is another vintage deck. This is the Yeager Tarot of Meditation, and I think this is a Leo deck because of the people in it. So let's take a look here. So look at those like leather hot pants on the Fool. In the very first edition, I think the Fool was just like pantsless, and this kind of like exhibitionist quality. I think the High Priestess is the only female figure in this deck that has their tits covered. So everyone else is just, there's something about just the people and the bodies and the kind of like big 70s hair about this deck that I think makes it very, very Leo. What do you guys think? I think, so that's why I chose this one for Leo. Is because of that. Wait, I gotta show you guys. Let's get to some of the courts. It's a pip deck, and it's not the pips aren't great, but look at these guys, right? I mean, come on. They're just like so glam, right? Let's look at some more of them. Oof, that hair, those boots, those little hot pants. Yes. It also, it feels super queer to me, at least especially like the courts. I don't know. It's a very fun deck in my collection. And then kind of along those lines, I've also got the tarot by Caitlin Madison, and this is another deck where the types of people in this deck are also feel kind of like very very glam. So we've got the Star. So it's and it's a different kind of like, I feel like Geminis can be quite trendy, but Leos like to get all dolled up, or at least that's the stereotype, right? And I feel like everyone in this deck is like, even if this, fashion sense is like very particular, it's a total vibe, but everyone in this deck is like kind of vibing out, right? And so for that reason, I thought it would be a great pick for Leo. And then the last deck I just want to mention really quick is a deck that I think it's a Leo, but for me, I always associate this deck with like high summer. And this is Tarot del Fuego. And to me, it's a very fiery deck, so it's got to be a fire sign. And for me, it's a summer deck. And so it's got to be a Leo. That's what it means. And yeah, I love this deck. This is the deck that kind of like made me realize that like interesting modern stuff was happening in the like realm of tarot art. And this was a deck that got me into a friend
when I was studying in India, a friend had brought this deck with her, and so this, and like summers in Rajasthan are hot, and so that for me, that's why I have that kind of summer association with this deck. But I love it. It's super cute. It's a Leo for sure for me. And so that concludes our. Oh, there's one more summer sign, right before we head into autumn, and that's going to be Virgo. And so Virgo, we've got our little sort of alchemist there. Virgo being a ruled by Mercury, and it's a mutable sign, so mutable earth. And it's represented in the tarot by the Hermit card. So Virgo energy for me is like very practical, very down to earth, very like, let's make a schedule and like figure out how things get put together. It also feels like a very crafty sign. So for me, think of like the hermit's workshop or kind of like an alchemist's workshop. That's kind of my associations with it. And so I do have a plant deck. I feel like everyone's got plant decks for this one. So the plant deck I picked for this one is the Dirt Gems. And for me, this is one of my favorite plant decks. And it has a really great guidebook. I feel like the guidebook is actually quite trauma informed, which I feel like most oracle decks are maybe not as much. And so this feels like a deck that's really focused on healing. And that sort of like orientation towards healing is one of the things that makes it a great choice for Virgo, in my opinion. And it's also quite beautiful. It's also a deck that I think goes well with a lot of other things. And it's a beauty. It's one that I treasure. So that is the Dirt Gems, and I do have the first edition, and I edged it. I carried on the design of the backs down the sides, and it's one of my favorite deck mods. And I feel like modding decks is also like, it's a very crafty thing, so maybe that's a Virgo-y thing too. I don't know. And then the other choice for Virgo is a pair of decks made by the same creator, and they were kind of made with the intention of being used together. And that's the Personal Oracle and the Vitriolic Tarot by the Dark Exact by Coleman Stevenson. So this is a majors only tarot, and it's an alchemical tarot. So it's color coded based on the different stages in alchemy. And for me, this is a very simple, very clear reader. But it's I don't know, this is another deck that I think is just like really, really iconic in its sort of like simplicity. It's just beautifully designed, I think. And you'll notice that this deck has all of these little icons here, which actually reoccur in the Personal Oracle. So it's line drawings in the same style. And the Personal Oracle doesn't come with a guidebook, but it invites you rather to come up with personal meanings for each of the signs. And that kind of interactive aspect to the deck, I think, also makes it a good pick for Virgo. And I think, the decks they were designed to be used together. So I think they go really well together. And yeah, I feel like they have Virgo energy. What do you guys think? So that's my pick for Virgo. Let's get these things put away. All right. So next up, we are moving into another Venusian sign, and that is the sign of Libra. So with Libra, ruled by Venus, this is cardinal air, right? And so Libra, I feel like is, whereas, you know, Virgo feels kind of like very crafty to me, and like the other Venusian sign, Taurus, feels like all about beauty. Libra feels very literary to me. It's an air sign, so it's about communication, but it's about beautiful communication. So it feels very romantic in a way that's maybe a little bit different from like a sign like Cancer or Taurus. And yeah, you know, it's we got the balancing scale, so all about balance, but I feel like also balance in like form and words. And so the two decks that I have picked out for Libra are two decks that I think are really great for like creative enterprise and specifically for writing. And that is the Spolia and the William Blake Tarot. So we'll start with the William Blake Tarot. This is the tarot of the creative imagination. And one of the suits is poetry. So each of the suits are a different art form. So we've got painting, we've got science, we've got poetry, and then we've also got music. And then the majors in this deck are all renamed, and I love the titles. And they all come with keywords as well. So I think this is a great deck to use in sort of creative endeavors, and poetry and music all have quotes from William Blake on there directly. And I think it's also a really beautiful deck. I love this deck a lot. And so for me, it feels like it feels like a Libra, for sure. And it's a deck that I think, you know, is great to use in creative practice, but especially in writing. And then I think the same goes for Spolia. So Spolia, unfortunately, is out of print, but I'm going to show you guys anyways. The Spolia deck, this was actually my first ever indie deck. I got it back in like 2018, and it's probably my all-time favorite. And it's so beautiful, but for me, the Little White Book actually had a huge impact on the way I read tarot, and I think it's one of the most beautifully written Little White Books. And here we have our Justice card. But if you missed out on this one, I would also recommend this book. It's called The Creative Tarot, A Modern Guide to Inspired Life by Jessica Crispin, who's the same woman who wrote the guidebook, the Little White Book for the Spolia. And for each card, it's got some like recommended materials. So you get songs, paintings, stuff like that. And each of the description is kind of gives you different, like, using tarot for creative prompts. So I would definitely check this out. And so this feels like very Libra to me, because it's not only is it like a very extremely beautiful collage deck, but it also has like very beautiful words, which is one of the things that I think makes this deck really exceptional for me. And so for that reason, this feels like a very literary deck to me. And like collage is also, you know, cutting things out, moving them around. That also feels kind of like, cutting things with scissors, swords, air. I guess that's the word association train for me, I guess. All right, so now we're moving on to another water sign. I'm all about the water signs, can you tell? And that is Scorpio. So with Scorpio, we have the scorpion. And this is a fixed water sign, and it's ruled by Mars. And the tarot card that's associated with it is the Death card. So Scorpio is a fun one. I'm a Scorpio rising. So Scorpio for me is like, you know, sex, death, and rock and roll, right? And so there's a couple signs that I feel like no one had a problem with, like, coming up with some Scorpio decks. Like, I feel like a lot of my decks are Scorpios, and a lot of my decks are like Pisces, you know. So I feel like a lot of tarot decks are, or Taurus, I don't know. There's some signs that I feel like I have an abundance of things that could work for, and Scorpio, I've got several. So the first one I'm going to show you is the Barbara Walker Tarot. I love Barbara Walker so much, you guys. I think she's absolutely iconic. And this is a little deck in a tin, and I feel like this is an absolute kind of like must-have in any tarot collection. I think it's yeah, completely iconic, and it's also, I would call it, I mean, it was created in the 80s, but Barbara Walker is like an old school pagan feminist. And I also feel like that this deck is kind of like just old school goth. And it has a reputation for being a little bit of like something like the Thoth Tarot. I think it has a bit of a rap for being a little bit of a meanie or a hard ass or something like that. But I love it. And there's some cards that are still like really beautiful. So if I do a reading with this and like Barbara Walker's being nice to me, you know, like I know it's real, or I can trust it. And so I think, yeah, this has really big Scorpio energy for me. It's a great spooky season deck, but it's a great any season deck. I've trimmed and edged mine, but I love this deck quite dearly. And then two other Scorpionic decks I want to show you. One is a deck from the 90s that's out of print. It's called the Crow's Magic. I think this is absolutely a Scorpio deck. It's the creator, Londa Marks, used to do like costuming and stuff like that for like rock bands. And so to me, this is a very kind of like another like you know, goth glam rock kind of deck. And it's got some really funky keywords. It's a total vibe. So another deck that is very, very Scorpio. And then the last deck I want to show you, I could go on with Scorpio decks forever. I think there's some of the really fun ones. Let's get this back in the box here. But the other one I wanted to show you is a recent acquisition, and that's this one. This is the Graven Images Oracle. So I wanted to share an oracle with you as well. The backs look like tombstones, which is great because this is a graveyard photography deck. And so, you know, part of Scorpio and spooky season is all about, you know, all about death. And this oracle, yeah, everything is taken from cemeteries, but it's a really clear reader. I love it a lot. I've been using it nonstop alongside the Gothic Tarot. And I'm not talking about the mass market one. I'm talking about this one, which is another Scorpio deck. So I accidentally showed you 4. I didn't mean to show you this one, but like I only use this one in conjunction. I'm just like completely obsessed. I think it's one of the best deck pairings out there. I love it so much. And they both make use of cemetery photography. Yeah, and there's like, with a lot of, you know, I think Scorpio is another of the signs that just has a lot of intensity to it. All right, that's enough of Scorpio, right? That's too much Scorpio. I got carried away with Scorpio. Well, what are you gonna do? I don't know. All right, next up though, we have Sagittarius. Here we go. So Sagittarius is the archer, or the centaur, and it is mutable fire, and it's ruled by Jupiter. So it's that kind of like very expansive, let's get out into the world kind of energy. And it's represented by temperance in the major arcanas of the tarot. And one of my tarot teachers, one of the things that she used to tell me, that the zodiac cards kind of represent the biggest challenge for that sign. So, you know, for example, Sagittarius might have problems with like things in moderation. They're kind of this like, you know, let's get out into the world, let's go do all the things. Or like they're kind of known for kind of like picking up a million different things and maybe not seeing them all the way through. I don't know. Zodiac stereotypes are, for me, they're very fun. I'm easily amused by them, but I don't take them super seriously. So I don't mean to offend any of Sagittarians, but a funny fact about Sagittarius is also, I found out recently that my mom is a super Sagittarius. She has a Sagittarius stellium, so that means her like sun, moon, rising, and like Mercury, and maybe one other sign is all Sagittarius. And so, oh man, once I realized that, oh boy, I had some things clicked into place. That's all I'm gonna say. But for Sagittarius, a deck that I picked, this is another indie collage number, which is kind of my tarot bread and butter. This is the Telesma Tarot by Tara Cochran. And for some reason, this to me, I mean, Sagittarius, we're getting into, you know, winter times, fall, winter, but the dark part of the year, and I think because of the black borders of this deck, this feels like a winter deck to me. And there's this kind of like vibrancy and kind of like neon lights. But I feel like this is a deck that kind of like gets out into the world a little bit, and it has that kind of like expansive Jupiterian quality that I associate with Sagittarius. This deck is also kind of thothy, and so that also, I feel like that also that kind of fiery energy is a part of this deck as well. And yeah, for those reasons, I feel like it's a great choice for our Sagittarius season. And the next deck I'm going to show you is a little bit of a personal association. And the deck I'm going to show you next is it's a indie Polish deck, and this is Tarot Droga. And so my mom's side of the family is all Polish, and so I feel like I have and because my mom's a Sagittarius, like I associate this deck with Sagittarius because of the like maternal lineage type deal. But the other reason I say that, so on the backs we have this like maze, and this deck was made using clay tablets, and like clay goes through a firing process. So that's one way to think about the sort of I don't know, element of fire in this. But let's get to some majors. And the fun thing about this deck, if we can find them, are that all of the majors are connected via a path. And that feels like, you know, it feels like, so if you lay out all of the majors, sorry for the glare, but you can form this like big path of connection out through the world, and that path making, I feel like path making is a Sagittarius quality, right? So that for me is why this deck is a Sagittarius. All right. So now we're moving into winter. We're moving into the winter solstice, which kicks off our Capricorn season. So we've got our goat mermaid skeleton here, and Capricorn is of course cardinal earth energy, and it's ruled by Saturn. So it's got this, Saturn is, sometimes seen as one of the more, this structured, strict planet, sometimes about constriction. If Jupiter's about like expansion, Saturn is often seen as like contraction. Saturn returns are notoriously difficult. And so we've got cardinal earth here, and Capricorns are kind of represented here in the tarot major arcana by the devil. So it's kind of like, it's very material. Oh, we've got a cat. Maybe she's a Capricorn. I don't know. Sorry, really bad joke. Excuse me, cat. So for Capricorn, I feel like Capricorns are kind of all about structure, about getting things done, about like material results, about it's like, the Saturn get your life together kind of energy, right? And so for me, what I thought would be great for Capricorn is like Tarot de Marseille. And I picked out 2 decks specifically. So here I've got 2 very traditional TDMs to show you guys. I love Tarot de Marseille. I think they're beautiful. I think they're a bit of a acquired taste or acquired skill set, but they're like extremely practical readers. And this deck in particular, I think, is very stylistic, and the engraving is actually, I think, we'll turn this face over because it's not focusing. There we go. I think this one in particular, this feels like a Christmas time deck for me. I think because of the sort of warm color tones, and I think the engraving in this one is just like one of the best examples. I think it's so beautiful. And Tarot de Marseille, like, it is a pip deck, so oftentimes readings are a lot more direct, a lot more kind of like practical, a lot more kind of like, it's less about how this card makes you feel, and it's more about what's the message, let's go. And so for that reason, I feel like TDMs are very, very Capricorn. So this is the Claude Burdel. This was engraved in 1751, and it's a historical reproduction made by Yves Renaud. And then the other Tarot de Marseille is another historical one, and it's made by Sullivan Hismans over at the Tarot Sheet Revival. And let's get him out. And I love the colors in this one. So this is the Dodal, or the Dodali. So this is like an even older school. So I think Dodal was made, I think, off the top of my head, I think it's more like 1650s to like 1700. So this one's like roughly, 50 to 100 years older than the one I just showed you. but I think it's quite beautiful, and the lines are so bold, and the line work in this one feels very energetic. But there's also this sort of like earthy quality to it to me. And here we have our devil, our Capricorn card. But yeah, I think the boldness in the pips and the court cards, yeah, I think I'm a huge fan. I made a whole video, if you're curious to see my Tarot de Marseille collection. You can check that one out. But those are two traditional, Capricorn. It's also it's Capricorn season is like the winter holiday season, so it's kind of like traditional values. And so I feel like it's appropriate to do like let's go old school tarot traditional for Capricorn. And that leaves us with only 2 signs to go. So after Capricorn season, we're moving into Aquarius. So Aquarius is it's a fixed air sign. It's also ruled by Saturn, and it's things get. This is where ideas get pushed to their boundaries, right? So this is the thinking outside of the box. This is like lightning. This is like inspiration. It's represented by the star card in the tarot. So this is, the realm, we're off in the realm of the very cerebral. So things like science fiction and, I don't know, stuff like that. So for Aquarius, I've got several picks, and my first pick is the Abstract Futures Tarot by Hilma's Ghost. Hilma's Ghost is a artist collective in New York City, and they are channeling Hilma Klint's ghost, basically, and they came up with the art for this deck. And so it's an abstract tarot deck. I think the way it was channeled is very Aquarian. I feel like the color palette, and I mean, Hilma Klint's artwork itself, I think, she was a kind of a female pioneer in, early modernist and like abstract art. And so I think this is another deck that I feel is just really, really beautiful. And but it's not a traditional scenic deck. It's abstract, so it's actually really fun to try and interpret what these sort of interpretation comes down to the interaction and interplay between shapes and color and movement between cards. So yeah, it feels very, very Aquarian. This is my favorite card. I love that green. Oh, it's so good. So a deck that I always reach for when I'm using this one to go with it. This is called the Ari Kira Oracle, as seen on the backs. But this is another. This deck was made with computer generated images, and it's color coded for different types of subtle bodies. So this deck is all about vibes, and as you can see, I think they go really well with each other. But like using these 2 decks together, like all you're getting is like vibes and substance and energy, and not a lot of like actual representational art. So for those reasons, I've decided that these guys are good choices for Aquarius. And then the other deck that I thought would be really appropriate for Aquarius, and there's more and more of these types of decks coming out, and there's like there's whole sets of like really interesting conversations happening about them. But this deck here, this is the Aldvansen Tarot, and it's one of the first tarot decks that was created using an AI. So I feel like you either love AI decks or you hate them. And I think, AI has a long way to go until it's a, you know, I don't know. It's one of those things where every time we have a new tool, there's it's just another tool, it's another modality, it's another technique. I don't necessarily buy into all of the fear surrounding it, although I think that there's some problems just inherent in the way it's reproducing a lot of human biases. But yeah, I think an AI deck is a great pick for Aquarius because it's really pushing boundaries of art and creativity in different and really interesting ways. So that is my pick for Aquarius, and then lastly is Pisces, and Pisces is I feel like so many decks could be Pisces decks. I feel like most decks are Pisces. I don't know. Very dreamy. So Pisces, of course, is mutable water. Water is already really mutable, so it's like water at its most watery, I guess. And so it's very dreamlike. It's ruled by Jupiter, but it's represented by the moon card in the tarot. And so the first Pisces deck I'm going to show you is the Enchanted Tarot by Amy Zerner and Monty Farber. And I know that Amy Zerner herself is a Pisces. And so I think that's where I get my association with this. This deck also just got reissued under the name the Zerner Farber Tarot. And I think I want that edition too. But this is a fabric collage deck, and it's very sweet. It's very beautiful. It's very gentle. It's Amy Zerner and Monte Farber often make really great Instagram and TikTok posts about living in the enchanted world, and I think Pisces energy is all about living in that enchanted world, yo. So that's my first pick. And then the next two decks I'm going to show you also have very dreamlike energy. And that's the Daydreaming in Situ and the Dream Dust Shamanic Tarot. So Daydreaming in Situ is a yet another collage deck. Surprise, surprise. But it's a very textured one. So I think of collage decks, it makes the most interesting. It has a striking use of just like color and texture to create images. It's a really interesting and quite a beautiful deck. This is one of my favorite cards. I just love the sort of the impossible architecture of this kind of cathedral, like just the striations of line. I think it's a really, really well done and underrated collage deck. But it's, daydreaming in place in C2 means in place. So it's, big Pisces vibes for me, for sure. And then the last deck I'm going to show you here is the Dream Dust Shamanic Tarot, which is a deck that I use oftentimes in dream work and dream reading. And this is another abstract deck, but unlike the Hilma's Ghost tarot deck that I just showed you, this deck is rather kind of about these softer, bigger shapes. There's less structure, more roundness, more kind of it's less delineated. So it's a lot of colors moving together. There's no harsh black lines. But it's, yeah, it's a great deck for kind of more abstract, dreamy kind of qualities, which are very Piscean. So, that was a whirlwind tour of decks for the zodiac signs. It only took me an hour to get through everybody. But I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope, let me know what your favorite picks were down below. Perhaps if you're so inclined, you can even do things like, like and subscribe. I guess that's something you say on YouTube. But yeah, this was fun. I hope your Zodiacal New Year is getting off to a good start. I'll see you guys next time. Bye for now.